Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Scenic Route Astrology. Makayla here, and this is part two for the Saturn transits video. I just want to mention real quick, if you have not watched video one yet, I explain what Saturn transits bring from an evolutionary perspective, okay? And then this can also apply to your natal Saturn placement as well, okay? I went pretty deep. I think the video was about 50 minutes long on how to, deal with Saturn transits in general, why people find them difficult, where the hardships might come from, and ultimately what is Saturn trying to teach you in the astrology chart, okay, by natal placement and by transit. That is like the foundational focus. If you found this video, now I'm going to cover houses 1 through 6 by transit, but I really suggest that you watch that first video so you know like exactly what I'm talking about, like what Saturn is requiring from you when it transits your specific house, okay? So make sure you pop over to that first, and then you can watch this. It really doesn't matter what order you actually do it in, but just make sure you check that out. And so, yeah, so we're going to be talking about Saturn transiting houses 1 through 6. Okay. A couple things I touched on in the first video. Saturn has a 30-year transit approximately around the chart. That's its orbital cycle. Okay. And so it's going to spend about 2.5 to 3 years in a part of your chart. Okay. So because it has a retrograde cycle that lasts about 4 months. Sometimes, you can have a Saturn transit depending on, where it's transiting, what degrees and placements. Sometimes those specific transits to an angle or a point in your chart can be 4 months. Sometimes they can be 8 months. This is when, it's helpful to either, work with an astrologer or learn deeper about transits and how to read them in your natal chart. Okay. But this is why you're here probably, right? So that being said, Saturn transits 2.5 to 3 years. Transits are trying to help your natal placement, okay, develop and grow and learn and gain mastery and maturity over time, okay? So the transiting planet, you want to think about, okay, this is like a specific focus on Saturn themes right now for the next 2.5 years. And then, of course, layer it in whatever planets it's aspecting, whether it's by square, conjunction, opposition, sextile, trine, in conjunction, even. Those will pull in obviously other facets and other layers of life too. But the specific house that Saturn will be in for, its length of time in a zodiac sign, that area of your chart becomes a little bit more of focus. Okay. Think about the planets as actors, okay? And the sign that it's in colors the behavior of the actor, and the house is going to be the behavioral focus, okay? That can literally be like manifest as like physical places, but because I study evolutionary astrology and I think everything starts with our emotional foundation and then it manifests out into the material world. A lot of what I talk about with the house placements is a behavioral area of our life and a part of our psyche, okay? And that's really where the deep evolution can begin, right? And why we use evolutionary astrology. I'm going to put Piper down. This is Miss Piper. But she's going to go down here for now because she's going to distract me and probably you. Okay, so we're going to begin obviously with the first house. When Saturn crosses an angle, okay, so when Saturn's entering the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house, or the 10th house, it tends to be bigger, more pivotal points just because the angles are super sensitive spots in our chart and they do represent, you know, like the pillars of our life, for instance, right? Like we're talking about here, like the body, the self, all right, the home, family life, our ancestors. The seventh house is like our one-to-one important relationships, okay, that we choose to go into. And then the 10th house is often like career or how we're actually being seen out in the world and the work that we do out in the world, okay. And that doesn't necessarily always tie into career. It just can mean how we're like showing up overall, okay. And it's a part of like crystallizing who we're becoming essentially out in the world too, okay. So when Saturn is in the first house, right, it's crossing or it's crossing your ascendant and it's leaving the 12th house, you're coming from a time of Saturn being in the 12th of like letting go and like a lot of things just coming to a closure, coming to an end, things that were a foundational piece for you, like of structure, things that were supportive of you for a long time. We'll get into it deeper when I get to Saturn in the 12th house. But overall, things have culminated and come to an end. So when Saturn is now crossing your first house ascendant, there's a sense of renewal that is going to be built. Okay. Now, remember, Saturn represents, areas of taking responsibility over our life and having a sense of maturity and showing up as that compassionate parent, being able to, structure one's life, have discipline, have patience with oneself. Okay. And remember that you're a work in progress. Forgive me. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. I was waiting for a delivery and the delivery came, so I had to go get it. Okay, so I think where I left off was Saturn bringing a sense of renewal coming in over the ascendant. Okay, so Saturn brings like, oh, I was talking about Saturn bringing in grounding energy and what we're responsible for and so forth. So when it ends in the first house, the first house deals with like how we present ourselves to other people. Okay. It's a part of us. The ascendant is a part of us that we are slowly becoming over time. And we're learning more about our first house. We're learning more about our independence in the sign, right, that is on your ascendant. So say like you're a Taurus rising, for instance, like you're learning about self-worth, for instance, and maintaining material security over time, right? Or maintaining value and resources. Like you're learning how to cultivate resources over time. Okay. So when Saturn moves into like whatever sign is on the first house, it's going to teach your first house, your ascendant now, how to be responsible for that archetype. Okay. So there's going to be this sense of renewal and this building process that begins where you have to take more responsibility and actions over your assertion, like the direction you're going to that you're going to choose to go in. Okay. And Saturn's a heavyweight, and so there's a little bit of restriction or blocks here. So if you're not headed in the right direction, Saturn's going to block you, okay, from like taking certain avenues, essentially. And if you are, Saturn's just going to remind you, okay, we need to put in a little bit more hard work and we need to put a little bit more of effort into here. This definitely will deal also with your body. So a lot of people will start to get more serious about like their appearance and how they look. Okay. And so that might mean you all of a sudden want to look more mature or more professional, to other people, or you all of a sudden want to like present yourself in a way that has more respect, right? Or gains more respect or more wisdom. There's this essence here of Saturn coming in and wanting to color the ascendant, if you will, with some type of authoritative nature, or like elder kind of flavor to it. Okay. And it will want that and it'll want to build that. Okay. But again, this is like a 2.5 year process of like learning how to do that. Okay. And beginning something, right? Because it's the first house. So like you're beginning this journey and it is going to start like another renewal cycle over the next 30 years. So remind yourself that you're a work in progress and this is going to take time. Okay. But Saturn's really going to ank you in here and start asking you questions like, what are you responsible for? What are you not? And how do you want to like basically take the direction of your life going forward? Okay. Because anything crossing the ascendant is like this new beginning. Okay. You might also decide that like you're taking on too much responsibility in some areas of life. And so you might pull back. You also might feel physically tired because Saturn kind of pumps a brake. Okay. And again, the first house is dealing with the body. And so for whatever reason, maybe you're having like bone issues or joint issues and so forth, or there's like a need to slow down, maybe you're not working out and you need to start, implementing physical routines to caretake for your body, or maybe you're working out too much and you're causing injury to your bones or the structure of your physical body and so forth. And Saturn's like, okay, we're going to pump the brakes, Either way, there's a reality check like regarding your physical body and like your physical presentation as well. So these things are going to take on a Saturnian look. So there's like patience, there's a slow process of this, becoming basically crystallized as a part of your appearance. Okay. There's this maturity that kind of takes over the individual when Saturn is crossing the ascendant, because they want to, look wise, and they want to look like they have more authority, and then they can take it on. Okay. There's also going to be this lesson and learning process around your limitations, like basically your physical limitations, because again, this is the body, but overall your limitations with dealing with other people and responsibilities and authority, and like your overall direction of life. Okay. Again, when something is crossing the ascendant or it's hitting one of the angles, it really shifts the whole chart, in my opinion. And so it kind of just like, it's like a clock, right? Or like a wheel is like turning. So there's like this massive turning point going on when you're going through this process. Okay. You're also going to have this like I can kind of attitude, just because Saturn can bring in that consistency or that need to persevere through something difficult or have like hard times come through. And the first house can give this like willpower kind of sense, this undertone. In evolutionary astrology, the first house is associated with the Aries archetype. So, we get our sense of desire. Our unconscious desires come up, right? They manifest right through the first house and through Mars and so forth, but not to overcomplicate things here. That's for like, if you want to learn astrology with me. But your willpower and your sense of drive will like become more stern. Okay. I would expect like some roadblocks and physical limitations at times. But it's only to build more character essentially, and like a stronger willpower. Okay. And again, this is only like a temporary transit for people who have this natal placement, learning autonomy and independence in a very like self-respecting, mature manner becomes the overarching evolutionary intention for people who have this natally in their first house. And basically taking responsibility for themselves over, the course of their life for whatever reason. In my first video learning about Saturn, we learned about the conditioning of like the early childhood and how much of an impact that has on our Saturn conditioning in our chart. So for a transit, it's a 2.5 year period where, you get this sense of renewal for your willpower and your drive. And you're really just going to look at, areas of your life, people, especially because the seventh house is opposite to you. Are they wasting my time? Or are they, is this somebody I want to put time and effort in? Okay. Because that's what Saturn's also going to represent here is how are you actually physically putting your body and your willpower and your drive and this renewal sense of energy that you have into time, into something long-term? Is this serious enough for you to actually take this towards the direction of your life? Okay. And if you feel a little tired by transit, people with the natal placement, I don't think you're going to feel tired your whole entire life, right? This is something you live with, right? And then you like overcome maybe like early on stuff or at certain points when your Saturn gets triggered. But like more so tired when it becomes a transit, because this is something that the chart holder is not used to as an energy like coming through. And so this heaviness just comes through their first house, and you're basically kind of just like, oh my God, this is so much for like 2.5 years, you know what I mean? But then it leaves, and then you have this like extra boost of renewal after that. Okay, so Saturn going into the second house, okay? This is going to bring up a lot of maturity and gaining wisdom and maturity when it comes to your resources, okay? Maintaining your resources, looking at your resources, your time, Your money is a big one in the second house, but also like your morals and your self-worth and value. Okay. So you really want to, pay attention when Saturn's coming in here is all of these issues are going to be coming up. And basically Saturn is like, is what I'm putting my time and energy and money into, okay? Is all my resources, second house, being put towards something that is a long-term benefit, right? Is this long-term? Is this effort? Is this hard work? Is this dedication beneficial for the long term? So a lot of people will come up with like these money issues because, it pulls in work issues, it pulls in people issues, it pulls in relationship issues. And ultimately, it's just like looking at all of your resources that you have and how much effort you basically have to either keep those resources, maintain those resources, or even get them. Okay. And so there's this reevaluation going on when Saturn comes in here, and it has to like you sober up and take a hard look at basically all of your money issues and your finance issues. Okay. And what is like really of value to you. Okay. So Saturn wants you to get like really grounded here on your self-worth and your values in the second house. And so you might start to realize that, you're tired of working that overtime to pay like the extra like $300 on the car payment, right? Because you'd rather have the free time and then go buy a shitty car, for instance, right? Than have like the brand new one, right? So Saturn can like really like put a block here on certain things where it once was a value, and then all of a sudden Saturn's just like, hey, wait a minute. All this responsibility that you have when it comes to your assets, like, is this really worth it? Like, do you deserve it also, right? This is another thing. Like, not if you're putting the hard work and effort and like you don't deserve it, right? But like, do I really need this? There's like a block here. And then for some other people, who have a hard time maintaining things of value in their life, right? They want the nice things, or they want to elevate, or they want to grow their life, or they want like the bigger house, or, the better car. I'm just thinking materialistic things here because it is like a seventh house, second house materialistic thing that manifests in the physical. But really what's being structured here and a focus on and a hard energy to look at here is like, what do you actually have and put a value? Okay. So is it like all these material things, or is it like the people in your life? Okay. And like, where are these responsibilities being placed to either maintain all of these relationships or these things? And is it worth it? Okay. Like, is it worth your time? And then for some people, again, who have like blocks or issues in their life for whatever reason, whatever karmic stuff you're coming in from your other lifetimes right now coming in, this is a time where Saturn can really like help you remove the blocks, because it's going to have you take more of a focus in this area. So you are going to work harder, and you're going to realize, okay, maybe I need to be more diligent here. I need to be more dedicated here. Or maybe I need to restrict spending so much going out to eat, for instance, right? So I can have this instead. And Saturn's going to have you take like a really hard look at, what you're doing with your resources. And if you want better things and you want bigger things and you want things that require more responsibility to have, because like I mentioned in the first video, the more money, the more responsibility that comes with it, Saturn will help you build that. Okay. It'll take some time and effort, okay, but it's going to help you get there. I can just say, like, from my last solar return, which I am finishing up this solar return year, but I had Mars and Saturn both conjunct in the second house. And I'll tell you, when I first saw my solar return chart early last year before my birthday, I was like, fuck, because like I've Mars and Saturn conjunct together, like in Pisces and in the second house. Like, what the hell, right? So I was like, obviously a little nervous, but basically what Saturn has had me do is just be super disciplined with my spending and restrict my impulses when it comes to spending, and really buckle down. And because I was able to do that, which was on the agenda anyway, right? But like the hard work and the effort that it took and the restriction that Saturn placed for me in the second house also helped me by my Thailand villa that is being built right now, right? So it's not that Saturn won't give you something when it's in a house, especially like a money house, a material house. It's Saturn wants you to have the thing. It wants you to have exactly what you want. It's just saying, hey, you have to take some responsibility here, hold the reins, okay? You're in charge right now of this area of your life. And what are you going to do with it, right? What's that long-term plan that we talked about? So Saturn in the second house is really going to have you evaluate, like, where is your money going and limiting expenses and what's of value to you right now, okay? And it's going to have you just focus in on that, okay? So it's honestly like a really positive place for Saturn, I think, to transit in, especially if people are trying to like grow their wealth or grow their assets or build on something that's of value for them. It's not, it doesn't go without hard work, but if you're listening and you're actually working with the energy, it's really not going to be so difficult, right? It's not going to be so difficult. And there were other, money things that came up too. And because I had planned for it, it was okay. So that's really what happens. Okay. So you have to put in the effort, and it wasn't like strenuous stuff, right? It was just like more focus and more dedication. And that's really what Saturn in the second house is going to do for you. Okay. And it's really going to have you plan, it's really going to plan for the long term. So it's going to be so beneficial when you are thinking about, well, my time is really worth the most, right? Because personally, for me, my time is the most expensive thing. So the long-term effects of this, of like the residual income from having a rental villa, for instance, is totally worth it, because in the long run, it's going to be residual income, which frees up more free time in my daily life, right? So it's stuff like that Saturn really transiting through the second house is so good for. Okay. So it's really a good 2.5 years. And I really, if people are experiencing that, I really suggest you like just take total full advantage of, I mean, any Saturn transit at all, right? But definitely through like the second, sixth, and 10th houses, where Saturn is comfortable in its Earth domain. Okay, so now we go to Saturn in the third house, okay? And this one is a communication house, okay? So this is where we ask questions, okay? Where we don't ask questions if Saturn is in here. And this is where we gather data and we learn to make connections, and we learn to communicate, okay? In the world and with each other. It definitely represents like, your local community and cars and so forth. And it can represent like your siblings and whatnot, really. But when Saturn is transiting through here, I really think the highlight is all about like your mental process, and your focus is learning how to communicate. Okay. So learning how to voice yourself better and communicate with others better. Maybe expressing your needs, right, is an issue. And so you're learning how to take authority and take responsibility for voicing your opinions, of voicing your ideas, right? Sharing them, communicating with them, um, establishing connections, right? It can help you. At first, it probably shows up as like a hinder, especially if you haven't really learned this, and like Saturn transiting your third house is like helping you learn this, and this might be like one of your evolutionary journeys in your chart. For like some people, they have that. Saturn will show up here first and be like, you'll be really blocked, and then that's because Saturn's blocking you for a purpose, because it's trying to highlight, okay, like this is like a challenge for you to take the authority over your throat chakra, over your voice, okay? Maybe. And then, the challenge is, okay, are we focused here on learning? Okay. Because remember, Saturn, you're a work in progress. So you deserve to speak up, and you deserve to say how you like what you're thinking. Okay. When Saturn is in the third house, this requires you to be the parent for yourself. Okay. So we're adults now. I mean, it's different with children, but we're adults now. And so we're working on, saying, I am comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with that. Right. I would like it if you told me this. Right. Or is this the truth? Right. You could deal with, communicating truth dynamics in the third house, because In the third house, we gather data. Okay. One of the other things that can happen, and I'm just thinking back to early life, like pre my Saturn return, when Saturn was in my third house, this had to do a lot with depression. Okay, depression when I was a teenager, and having, because I was repressed and oppressed and so forth because of family, whatever. I mean, we've all got the family stuff going on in my chart. It makes sense. But because I was not able to express myself and share and communicate exactly, the thoughts and opinions that I had about my childhood and growing up and so forth. Everything, Saturn was really hard on me mentally. And so I was very mentally depressed as a young child. And I used to journal a lot. Okay. So one of the things is like you can write, you can express, you can slowly learn how to express yourself. And so if writing letters helps you, okay, starting a blog, starting a book. It doesn't mean you have to finish it. It doesn't mean that it will be finished, okay? But the art of writing in general, and starting to communicate something in some type of way, especially if it is through writing, because Saturn is a physical planet. So we're taking what is an air quality in the third house and putting it into something physical and tangible with Saturn energy. That can really help the individual process when Saturn's going through the third. And really what's happening here is Saturn is coming through your third house where you do a lot of thinking, and it's bringing wisdom and maturity in, and it's bringing you a heaviness and a weightedness in, because it's really asking you to take responsibility for your own expression, but thoughts and opinions and ideas and so forth. And it's anchoring you into yourself deeper, rather than gathering is fine, because there is a necessary need to like gather information in the third house and have other ideas and stuff too. But it's only to broaden your perspective, right? And to help shape your perspective even more, so that you're not looking at one thing as a fact and that's the only fact. It's communicating. So one might be going through mental health issues and challenges when Saturn is going through the third house. And you could do a lot of writing. You could do a lot of reading. You could read a lot of books on like whatever topic it is that you're dealing with right now. Like if you're dealing with like a narcissistic abuse kind of thing from a previous relationship, right? And Saturn just left your second house, and it was like, Saturn, right, was in your first, and you broke up with your partner, and then it went through your second, and you were rebuilding your self-worth. Now it's in your third, and you're learning how to rewire your brain from being in a narcissistic relationship. So you're reading books and you're listening to podcasts and you're gathering bits of data. And Saturn's really like, you need to work towards the mental future that you want to live in, right? You need to plan long term here. So what kind of mind do you want to have, right? You want to have a strong, responsible, mature, stable mind. And so that's what Saturn's coming in here and through the third house is to do. Okay. So some people, it can be very hard. They can get very depressed. And I encourage you, like if you're a counseling astrologer like I am, or you're working with somebody that you care about and you're just like in their chart, like check in with them and see how they're doing and open up those lines of communication, because often these people having Saturn transit through the third house also can have a hard time. Like it can feel a little stagnant, okay, around communication. So this transit will also like really make you aware, because again, Saturn is like a little bit of a limitation and a pumping of the brakes. You're going to become really aware of what you do know and what you don't know. Okay. And so for some people, this can be challenging, because you might be a really knowledgeable person and, like you think you know the thing and all the things, and, in your workforce or whatever topic it is, and you know everything. Saturn's going to come in and it's going to bring you people through communications and shared ideas and stuff. And it's going to stop you and say, you don't know everything. And you need to learn more. Okay. And you need to put a little bit more of diligent focus into, gathering a little bit more knowledge and so forth, because it's really going to help you when it goes into the next house. Okay. Remember, these things always like build on each other, right? It's like a constant like building thing. So as you're listening to this, like you might want to just kind of go through all of the houses so you know what like kind of ride you're in for and what previous ride you were in for and how they all build up and help, okay, on top of one another. Okay, so then we go into the fourth house. And again, this is when Saturn is crossing one of the angles, which is a big deal, especially with the fourth house, because when it crosses the first house, it's a bit more of an external expression. Like Saturn's like kind of like pushing its energy out there. But when it goes into the fourth house, it's more of an internal expression. Okay. So you can definitely find yourself becoming more like in solitude when Saturn is in the fourth house. Okay. Sometimes, excuse me, sometimes there's this like recluse kind of energy going on because the fourth house really deals with like our identity. Okay. And I know a lot of people are like, well, what about my sun? And what does my sun mean? The sun is, little small astrology lesson here. The sun is how you creatively express your entire chart. Like all of the behaviors in your chart, right? Your Mars, your Venus, your Mercury, you communicate, right? Your moon and the fourth house is your identity. Okay. That's really who you are. So you always want to look at the moon in the fourth house and like that's how somebody is identifying with themselves in their life in this lifetime. Okay. The sun is how we choose to share a part of that. Okay. Plus everything else in the chart. So the moon is like super interesting to me, and so is the fourth house. But when Saturn is coming in here, you're getting a real heavy focus on like your identity. Okay. And things get crystallized with Saturn. Okay. So there is a lot of stuff where we have to confront now things with family and ancestors. Okay. So issues that need to be healed with family members. And that doesn't mean that you have to take a family member back into your life. Say you didn't have like a healthy relationship with a family member or so forth. It doesn't mean that. It just means that there is a necessary need to focus and go in on healing any of those kind of parental issues or wounds or family wounds that may have transpired early on. Okay. And those could be big or little. Okay. But there's a need to like address that. Okay. Because family issues from the past will come up when Saturn is transiting the fourth house. Definitely like memories can come up. There's the fourth house holds a lot of memory, and Saturn is like crystallized stuff in here. And so it's entering that fourth house, no matter what sign it's in. It's going to bring up a lot of this stuff to, can you be responsible to heal it basically, and then parent yourself, okay, not be conditioned by these imprints of early on anymore. Okay. Obviously, some of us have like those happy memories too, and so forth. And those happy things will be crystallized in us too. But remember, Saturn's kind of like tough love and hard lessons here. Okay. And it's asking us to be a little bit more mature and to look at, areas of our life that's really of importance, right? That's really going to last something a long time. So Saturn moving into the fourth houses here is like your identity and how you emotionally care for yourself is important, and that's going to last you a very long time. So we need to look at that. We need to grow in this area right now, right? We need to become a little bit more mature with the things that we're carrying, right? Or not carrying. Okay. We need to have like a little bit more of a sober look at our internal world and how we're feeling. Okay. Because the internal world, how we're feeling inside, is also going to affect all of our relationships and our family life going forward and so forth, right? So Saturn really wants you to start to make things happen. Hold on. I don't know what happened to my video. We're going to have to hold on a minute. Honestly, guys, I'm so sorry. My camera died. I don't know what's going on today. I checked the transits when the camera is charging, and I thought Mercury was in its retrograde shadow period, and it's not. So it's just in Pisces. And Mercury in Pisces has been like having so many misfires with communication. Okay. It's just like communication just like dissolves essentially, like it should. So just like my camera dying on you guys. Anyway, I digress. So back to Saturn transiting the fourth house. Okay. So definitely like family stuff is going to come up. Repressed things, repressed family issues, things are going to come up and so forth. This is also a time where Saturn, because it wants you to take responsibility for yourself, right? In whatever area it's transiting. This is a time when Saturn's really going to highlight now that you've done like the self growth around your values and your communication and the previous houses, expressing your needs and being able to show up and like basically validate your needs. Okay. And taking ownership for getting your needs met. No, that doesn't mean that like put that on other people. You'll definitely, well, when we get to the seventh house, we'll deal with our needs with other people and stuff too. This is really about you being able to address your own needs, right? And I mean more than just like shelter and food and whatnot, right? What do you need to like feel emotionally stable, emotionally secure, having a strong emotional foundation? Um, it's really not an easy transit to have during this time because it's so much inner work being done. It can really feel very heavy on the heart, and the things that are so personal to you. Okay, we're dealing with the fourth house here, so there's definitely like a sensitive area of the chart. Again, it doesn't matter what sign it's in; the sign is going to color, basically like how the planet is acting it out. But like home foundation, your inner needs, and your ability to show up and take responsibility and support yourself and build a really strong foundation are going to start to be really loud themes for that like 2.5 year transit. Okay, that's coming up. Um, so that might mean other people stop being able to meet your needs, okay, as well, right? That might mean that there's a lack thereof because Saturn will bring the lack or it'll bring the block and so forth, right? So that will be really loud and you'll be like, these people aren't meeting my needs, my family, my partner, like whatever it is, like my needs aren't getting met. And that's because Saturn's asking you now to, take a really cold, sober look and concrete look at the fact that like we can't place those things on other people, and essentially we are responsible for ourselves. Okay, the minute that we place our responsibilities or our need to be cared for as an adult, that's when the block will come in like a Saturn thing, and then like Pluto will come in and do its own thing of like destruction and transformation and so forth. Okay, so again, it's about understanding that you are a work in progress. This is going to take time. Have patience with yourself. Don't be surprised if you feel like you want to have a little bit more time for soul searching and solitude while Saturn's transiting your fourth house. And if people aren't showing up for you as they usually do, okay, it's not a relationship you thing, although it might be. You might really understand, why am I putting my time and energy into this like family member, for instance, when they don't give me the same love and respect back. We might deal, those are the family issues that can come in, right? And so you're going to like really be looking at how you were not nurtured growing up. You're going to be digging really deep into your ancestry. All of these things are going to be a focus. You're going to be looking at like the conditioned patterns of behavior that were implemented you as a child. And, there's going to be like a sober, hard look at this stuff. Okay. It's quite often normal that like things in the home need fixing, for instance. Like home issues, like mortgage blocks, like, not to scare people, whatever, but there's either like new responsibilities brought in, all right, like maybe you need to caretake for an elder family member, for instance. So somebody moves into the house, right, or a child moves into the house and there's a new responsibility there or so forth. But like home, family, life has a little bit of block and a little bit of hardship, and it requires a little bit more attention and focus and discipline, and a little bit more of like a sober look at the reality of things. Okay. And then also making sure that you're addressing your personal needs first. Okay. Then we're going to go, yeah, the Leo fifth house obviously is the next one. And here, Leo fifth house is all about our creative, like self-expression and having fun, right? And playing and being childlike. Um, Issues with children can come up here. Maybe they're requiring more of your attention. Maybe kids just need more focus. Maybe you are actually bringing in a child during the fifth house, or you're dating somebody who has a child. So now, you're getting new responsibilities coming in. That can definitely, if you're like single and without children, you can partner up with somebody who does have one. And that can, like, we can't go out this night because I've got the kid kind of thing, right? And Saturn's here. It's like, hey, you've got responsibilities here with dealing with children. But this can also deal with you showing up as owning your opinion, okay? Because opinions are in the fifth house because it's about our creative self-expression, okay? And our individual creative self-expression. So having Saturn here is like, do you feel like you can have a voice? Like, do you feel like you have the authority and the ability to express yourself? And if you don't, Saturn's going to come in and bring you people who challenge that, right? Who challenge you on that and make you have to like put in the hard work and the effort, right? To order to build your ego. Okay. We're building the ego here in the fifth house. And the ego is important. Like, it's not this negative thing that a lot of people like talk about. Like, we have the soul and we have the ego. And we wouldn't be a human without our ego. Like, we wouldn't be able to navigate this world and like do our chart without our ego persona, right? So it's about building a healthy ego, a healthy creative expression. Okay. So Saturn's going to come in here and like want you to get a little bit more serious about it. Okay. So for some people, like, they don't let themselves play because they're always like hard work, hard work, hard work. They work to death, and Saturn's going to come in and it's going to be like, hey, like, you're all about this work and this job and this role, but that's not really who you are. And like, we need to have you focus on like your creativity or your self-expression. So like, you might get laid off at work, for instance, so you can go play and like have this creative stuff going on, right? You might actually have a transit like that, right? Or on the other end, you might not put in the effort. You might go out and play too much, you know, and then Saturn comes into the fifth house and it's like, okay, you've been like kind of partying and playing too hard, and we need to like dial it back. Okay, because like you got, you know you're going to end up with like an addiction when Saturn moves into the sixth house or something like that, right? So Saturn can be like, well, we're going to give you some other responsibilities instead, like, maybe like you're an artist and like you have like this project that's due, that's coming up, that's really important, that is a part of your creative self-expression, but you've been doing like, the networking events and the partying events too much, right? And Saturn can kind of like bring in this restriction and this pressure here. Okay. You might deal with ego conflicts because again, Saturn is going to come up as like a kind of a wall at some point, and it's going to help you build your own sense of creative self-expression. So you might deal with like other people's egos, and like a battle of that, right? And that's just to teach you that basically you can hold space for other people's egos, because we've all got one and we've all got our own way of expressing ourselves, right? Just for instance, like astrologers, like we've all got our own way of like expressing the astrology, and not everyone vibes with every astrologer, like I'm not for everybody kind of thing, but like I hold space for, and not every astrologer is for me, and there's some out there that I definitely just like do not resonate with, and I'm like, what the hell? But I hold space for them to like have their own creative way of expressing their work, right? And it's like the same thing with Saturn transiting through the fifth. I actually have this like literally right now, um and have had this, right? So and there was times when like I first got into the, to the field, and I was like, oh, and like, I was like in EA and I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, that's kind of like too pop and stuff. But now I can see like the differences, right? And so Saturn was kind of bringing in these like ego things for me to look at and just to be like, hey, you're you can come in here and take up space in the community and your self-expression and be the type of astrologer you want to be and like have your own personality and like do it your way, Makayla, right? But so can everybody else, right? And so you really deal with like a lot of judgment about yourself, right? You'll deal with a lot of judgment about yourself and how you're creatively expressing yourself, and you'll start to have self-respect and maturity over it. And it will also be reflected towards people, other egos surrounding you as well, right? So it becomes more playful over time. At first, when this first entered like my fifth house, for instance, when I started my YouTube channel, and like if you go back to my very first videos, like I am so meek and like weird, right? Because I didn't like know how to do it. I'm like, I don't know how to talk, and I would hold the phone, and like the lighting had to be like okay, and like now I don't care. Like I I don't like, you know what I mean? Like I care, but like I cared too much about the things that didn't matter, right? Now I'm just like I got my vibe, I got my light, my dog, like whatever, this is who I am, and this is like how I make my space. But in the beginning, it was like navigating that, right? And it was like trying to like talk in front of a camera. And Saturn will come in here and develop these qualities, whatever way you like to play in life, right? If it's with work, then that's fun. If it's not with work and it's like with your kids or it's with your friends or whatever, that's fun too. But whatever Saturn coming into the fifth house, it's not like, oh my God, you're not going to have fun. It's like you're going to learn how to have fun in a responsible way that actually makes like builds you up for something long lasting, right? Like not just for the sake of it, like wasting time. Like you learn to have things that bring you joy, hobbies that bring you joy, but also like have a lasting effect, right? That will build something over the long term. Whether that ties into work, whether or not, it doesn't matter, right? It's going to highlight that area. If it is with children, for instance, because again, the fifth house is with children, that is a long lasting, right? That's building family, that's building relationships. Maybe that's a best friend who just had a child and they're coming in and like, you're basically like an aunt now, you know what I mean? Or an uncle or whatever, what have you. Okay. It's a good time for Saturn, like, believe it or not, to be in, right? We just need to learn how to work with this discipline energy and to look at it in the positive light that it is, right? So many people think of Saturn as like a negative thing, and it is really not. It's really here to like help your life just basically build a foundation for the better and stronger and stronger. Okay. So then we go into, and this will be the last house for this video, and then I'm going to tap off, and then I'm going to do the other houses in a separate video. So this is not too long for people. Saturn entering the sixth house. Okay. So here we have a hard look at our daily routines, what we're doing day to day, right? Do you get adequate sleep? What time are you waking up in the morning? Are you getting all your vitamins and nutrition in? Okay. A big part of this is going to be your health, and a large focus is going to be on your health. And you need to take care of your health in a very meticulous way when Saturn is in here, because Saturn's going to restrict on things. Okay. Restrict down on your routine for whatever instance, or it's going to want you to get a little bit more serious about certain routines in your life so that you can basically have a stronger body and set yourself up daily. Because when you cross into the seventh house, and we go the houses 7 through 12, now we're starting to meet the other world, and we're going to get a little bit more energy, in my opinion, taken out of us. Okay. So we need to have strong bodies, strong minds, a strong emotional foundation in order to start to meet the world. Okay. So Saturn here is going to have you look and be really like critical on like what things in your daily routine in your daily life are you spending time on. Okay. With an exceptional focus, I don't care what sign it's in, an exceptional focus on dealing with the body. Okay. So you might have like all of a sudden developed like some type of allergy. Okay. For instance, like physical allergy to like gluten or dairy, or like all of a sudden like meat doesn't buy, whatever it is, right? There might be some new health routine that needs to be implemented in for whatever reason to prep your body for like what's coming next, right? So there's a necessary dedication, a necessary plan to take responsibility over your physical health and your daily routines. Now, this also comes under the umbrella of the sixth house being of sacrifice, right? Not sacrifice, service. Um, Now, not everybody wants to be of service to others, and that's fine. Okay. Really, I think personally, from my experience of like studying the sixth house, and I have a sixth house son, okay, is like not all of us want to be of service every single day. Like some of us, and I'm an Aries sun, so I want to be of service to myself every single day, right? And so for some of us, like being of service and Saturn coming in here, it's like, how can I do more? How can I be more responsible? How can I be more disciplined? How can I take on more responsibility for other people and help other people? Maybe I should donate to the food shelter every week. For me, for instance, donating to the animal shelter every month, right? It's something I do. I put time and energy into work so that I can send the money donation, right? But I can't put in the time, nor would I actually be able to emotionally handle seeing all the animals there, because I'd want to take them home and adopt them all because I'm too much of an animal lover. But the fact is there's a focus now at Saturn here is like, what are you doing that's of service? Okay. And if it's not like you don't want to be of service to people or animals or whatever, okay, what are you doing that's of service to yourself so that you're actually just a better human being to the people and the individuals who are around you? Okay. And that's just as important. Okay. It doesn't mean Saturn comes in here or even Neptune. I talk about Neptune in the sixth house, right? It doesn't mean that like you have to sacrifice your entirety of that transit to, being of service here or there. The soul's mission is to be the best version of itself and to live the life that it wants to live. So if that's not your calling when Saturn comes in here, don't block yourself up and start trying to work more diligently on things that are a waste of your time to you, like deep down, right? It's time to be of service to yourself. Okay. And so that's focusing on your health, that's focusing on your sleep, that's focusing on your diet, what you're digesting. That's a big one on the sixth house. Looking at the chemicals that you like clean your house with or you put in your body, all of these things can become, of a sudden focus and like a working area. Okay. Another thing too is that if you work in a team, you could have like more responsibility coming in to you, or if you are a leader, because that can be sun in the sixth house too, right? It can be a leader who has a team underneath you. You could have to have more responsibility in your plate, and you have to start delegating and like training other people and so forth, right? So work is a part of our daily routine. So for whatever reason, that can come up too, right? Saturn can bring in authority figures of some sort. So whether that's you or other authority figures in the daily life, there's some sort of like monitoring and discerning process that has to happen as well. Okay. And does it help your mental health and your physical health, or does it not? Right. These are the things that you're going to be looking at. Like, what is my daily setup? Like, right. This is what you'll be asking. Like, what is this? What is this structure? Is this nurturing energy? Can I be serious about maintaining this? Like maybe you've got too many responsibilities, right? Too many in your sixth house, and it's like making you really like exhausted and tired and sick. And then Saturn moves into your sixth house as a transit, and it makes you literally physical ill, and it has to push you to pump the brakes to realize, hey, you've had too much on your plate for the last 30 years. Now Saturn's entering your sixth house, and it's like time to pump the brakes, right? So it could go either way. It depends where you are in your journey and where you are in your life and what's going on in your chart, of course. Okay. But these are things that are going to be critical for you to pay attention to and to look at. Okay. So that's going to wrap up for the first half of this video of the Saturn transits. Okay. Please make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. Drop me a comment if you want to talk about Saturn transiting any of these houses for you, maybe what your experiences were. I know it helps other people when they're watching the videos. I always love reading comments, whether it's on my own videos or other people's videos. I think we can all help each other resonate and grow. And yeah, so I'll be back again soon, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.